symptoms. Okay, so making butter. Welcome to the workshop. Summoning the courage to create a sweet life after loss. You can go to the next slide, Mary. Okay, so Grief and Fear by Samantha Smithstein. No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear, says C.S. Lewis in the opening line of A Grief Observed. Maybe grief doesn't just feel like fear. Maybe it is fear. Okay, maybe not wholly. Grief does, of course, contain great loss. Loss of someone or something or both that was tangible and real, that was important and precious and beloved. So there is a true sadness that comes with loss. A sad so real, your body aches and you want to get outside of your own skin. A sad that makes you tear and shake things and makes you lie down and cry. But I'm beginning to understand that grief is not just loss. Grief is also about becoming untethered. It's about losing an identity, losing a map and compass all at once, a way to orient our life, our love. This untethering is not only disorienting, it can be terrifying. I'm not afraid, C.S. Lewis goes on to say. Just have the same fluttering in the stomach, the same restlessness, the yawning. Not afraid, he says, yet he's having trouble breathing, sitting still. Feels it in the pit of his stomach. Sounds like a perfect description of fear to me. And why shouldn't he be afraid? He has just lost his wife. She was central to his world, his heart. She was home. He was her husband. Now she exists no more and he is not that person. So who is he and where the hell is home? I would offer the idea that not having the answer to those two questions is pretty frightening. And with loss, life offers you no chance to answer it the same way you did before. Even if you've spent your whole life answering it the same way, loss and the subsequent grief force you to find a different answer. And the fear is not just about the untethering, about not having the answer. It's because the answer to those questions isn't knowable in minute or day or month or sometimes even a year. And so while we figure it out, we have to live in a world without orientation, without knowing who we are or where we're going or where we live. There are no coordinates to plug into our GPS. We can only put one foot in front of the other each day. Breathe. We can't run, but we can't stand still either. We have to keep walking forward, holding fear's hand until we arrive somewhere new. So I feel like that is a pretty good description of grief, especially in the early days where you feel like you've lost your identity, you don't know where you're going, what life is going to be like, and how are you going to get through this? How do we get through this? And that last line, or the two last lines, we have to keep walking forward, holding fear's hand until we arrive somewhere new. That's the map. Without coordinates or a GPS, we just have to keep walking forward. So I think the first thing that we have to do is acknowledge those fears, right? We have so many fears when we become widowed. And when we acknowledge them and have them validated by others who are going through the journey or have been through the journey before you, it helps to assure you that A, you're not crazy, and B, that you can continue moving forward, holding that particular fear's hand. And in some instances, letting that fear go slowly over time. So first of all, we have to identify those fears. So I'm sure a lot of you know, as I was afraid of living life without the person beside me, right? And especially during this time where the world is completely, you know, in this crisis, and the person that we wanted most to talk to about it and to get comfort from isn't beside us. And I can relate to that. For those of you who don't know me, I was 33 years old when I lost Sergio. He was a firefighter that answered to the call to the World Trade Center on September 11th. And the world was again in crisis at that time. And it was very scary with all of the ongoing news and the threats of anthrax and war and more terror attacks. And I wanted him so much to be next to me. And He wasn't there, right? But fortunately, I was a member of the FDNY community, and they set up a counseling unit right away that offered one-on-one counseling as well as peer support groups. And those peer support groups, I was in the widowed group, and I was also in the fiancés and significant others group. Those were such a lifeline to me during that crazy and chaotic time, just as I hope that the Soaring Spirits community can be for you. Just to be reassured that you're not alone, that you're not going crazy, that we're all feeling very similar fears at this time, right? Some of you may be afraid that you're going to forget your loved one, especially in those early days. You're like grasping at memories, and it's like, I feel like I'm going to forget him. I feel like I don't know what he looks like walking out of the bedroom into the living room. I feel like I want to assure you, 18 and a half years later, right, that we won't forget our loved ones. We don't. Over time, they're always a part of you. And over time, you'll see that you can really accept that they're a part of you. I think in the early days, it's hard to integrate that thought, but over time, you'll see that it becomes that. And if you're afraid of forgetting like the little details about your loved one, I made this little tribute book for Sergio for his memorial. And in my fear of what I was going to forget, I created a page of all of his favorite things. I just wrote it down. I listed it. And so I suggest, if that's one of your fears, that that's a good way for you to kind of take a little bit of control back. Put it down in a journal or whatever, write it down. If you're afraid that you're going to forget your husband ate honey bunches of oats or got his hair cut, at Jimmy the Greek's, or whatever it is that is a meaningful memory for you, write it down. You won't forget. I can promise you that. Some of you might be afraid of like even considering a new life, right? Especially when you're in the depths of grief. Like, is it possible for me to find love? I can't even imagine going down that path again, right? Well, if I do, am I going to betray my loved one by doing so? I can assure you that you won't. When the time comes, when you're ready, if you're ready, some of you may never be ready, and that's completely fine. You can still create a beautiful life without a new relationship. You are never going to betray your loved one. You honored your commitment, okay? Let's go to the next slide. Courage. So Brene Brown, if any of you have read Brene Brown or haven't, I highly recommend her. She defined courage. She broke it down by the French or the Latin root. Cur is heart. And so her definition is to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. And in grief, we have to have the courage to really stand where we are, and whatever that may look like for you. Like if today you're just at the bottom, that's fine. If today you're laughing, that's fine too. It's the courage to be authentically where you are in your grief. And with that, I must tell you that in order to get through this, you got to feel it to heal it. There's no fast forwarding it. There's no taking your heart out, putting it on a shelf, fast forwarding to, a couple of years until that happily even after, and then putting your heart back in. It doesn't work that way. We do have to feel everything. And what grief challenges us to do is not just feel the grief over losing our loved one, it's feeling the grief of memories from childhood, experiences from childhood. You're going to get hit with every grief issue that you grew up with. That's what grief does. It brings you so close to yourself. And we have to have the courage to be in it and know that with support, we're going to continue to move forward and get through it. So my first thing is hold your sorrow gently, right? When all of these dark emotions come, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up because you cried so much today. Don't beat yourself up because you were doing so well and you passed your anger stage and it's 3 months later and all of a sudden you are just raging mad. Don't beat yourself up. Hold your sorrow gently. You have to treat this experience as if you were a child, really, in this experience. And you wouldn't tell your childhood self, that you're bad or you're wrong for feeling these things. And again, community is so important to validate that whatever these dark emotions you may be having is normal. Grief is like the ocean, and we learn to ride the waves. Again, I'm so glad that we live in this time now with social media and so much information available to us, because there was this outdated notion that grief was this linear timeline, I forget what it is, like acceptance, denial, acceptance, sadness, whatever that linear timeline was. But you will see, and definitely in speaking to other people in the community, that it's not this linear experience that's over in 1 year. It's actually more like the ocean, and we learn to ride the waves. And as time passes, those waves may not be the tsunami that it was in the beginning, and you just learn how to move through it over time. Not to say, in all fairness, that 18 and a half years later, I still get waves, and it is lifelong, and I will tell you why it's lifelong, because this quote, "Grief is the last act of love we can give to those we loved. Where there is deep grief, there is deep love." I'm sure many of you have seen that, and it's so true. You're going to love your person for the rest of your life, and with that, you're going to grieve them for the rest of your life, and it's not a bad thing. You're going to miss them. You're going to wish they were here forever. But there will come a point where you accept that they're not, and you can carry them still forward and have them be very much a part of your life, however that may look down the line. Tearless grief bleeds inwardly. So if we don't express our grief, I read somewhere, but now I looked it up and there's kind of conflicting things, but that emotional tears, they carry toxins out of your body, right? So if you're holding back tears, you're not crying, even though you want to cry, I encourage you to put on the saddest movies or listen to the saddest music or look at your pictures or do whatever it is to put you in that state where you can just get some kind of an emotional release that's healthy. Set boundaries. We have to have the courage to set boundaries. For example, when people are being judgmental or telling you how to grieve, when they are being intrusive, you don't have to share everything with everyone. And if somebody is coming at you with something that's uncomfortable for you to answer, or they're telling you things that you're not comfortable with, you can gracefully say, "You know what, I can't hear that right now," and walk away. Have the courage to do that. Don't feel like you have to sit there and let people tell you how to grieve, including me. I'm not telling you how to grieve. I'm just offering suggestions. And a quote is Brene Brown. "If we share with those who respond with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive." So don't let anybody make you feel ashamed of what you're going through. And if somebody is, again, share with those who respond with empathy and understanding. And you will definitely find that in your widow community. And I'm sure you all have that one friend that is non-judgmental and just lets you be who you are in your grief. So I encourage you to share with people who respond with empathy and understanding. Next slide. Okay, this is a PG workshop. So the DWTFYW stands for do whatever the farfenugan you want, okay? And this, to me, is how I lived, because ultimately your grief journey is your grief journey. Only you know what is going to help bring you comfort or joy or peace or laughter or tears. Whatever you need to do to get through your moment, do it. And I encourage you to also do something for yourself every day that's nice. Own your power to choose what is best for you. Commit to doing one nice thing for yourself every day. Follow your heart, gut, intuition. Your body is a pretty good barometer in letting you know if something is right or not. And if you're unsure of something, sleep on it, journal, or talk it through with someone who has your back. And I have this sign. Of course, I talk to myself. Sometimes I need expert advice, really, because we are the only ones who know what's the best for us in any given moment, right? And sometimes the best thing for us is to lay on the couch and just be still and with the shades drawn, and that's okay. If that's what you need to do to get through the moment, do it, okay? Just make sure you're not doing so much of it that you're not getting out and doing something nice for yourself too. So for the next slide, please, Mary. Comfort. You're seeing comfort, right? Yes. Okay. So what brings you comfort? Only you can determine that, right? For me, I'll just tell you that talking about my loved one, talking about Sergio, gave me a tremendous amount of comfort. That might not be the same for you right now, and that's fine. I used to sleep on his side of the bed. That gave me a lot of comfort. I would look at his pictures and videos. That would give me comfort. Sergio's mom, though, that didn't give her comfort, right? So she was a different person. So we have to do whatever the Farfanugan we want to bring us comfort. Listening to music. This one is a big one. Talking to or learning about others who have experienced similar loss. That'll definitely bring you some comfort. It'll reassure you that you're not alone, and that's what the power of this community is. Next slide. Peace. I want you to think of those things that bring you peace, right? For me, it was reading about other people's experiences. Like I needed to know that I wasn't the only person going through this. And this was back in 2001 when we didn't have Widowed Village or Soaring Spirits for that matter, or blogs to read. You know, just to have that reassurance that I wasn't alone gave me peace. Writing, journaling, that gave me peace. Getting out into nature gave me a lot of peace. Going into the gardens or going to the beach, feeling the sunshine, looking at the ocean, that gave me peace. Exercise, going for a long walk, power walk, gave me peace. Meditating. Now, I'm not a good meditator because my brain is all over the place. And if that's something that you're interested in, there are plenty of apps and YouTube videos with guided meditations, if you can't sit still enough, that will help you to kind of center yourselves and just bring you some sense of peace. For some of you, it might be going to church. Whatever it is that brings you peace, do it, okay? Next slide, please. Joy. Now, for those of you who are early in your journey, it can be really difficult to conceive of joy right now, and I totally get that. But I do want you to know, because I grappled with this for so long, that joy and sorrow can coexist. One is not exclusive of the other. So hold your joy gently and let go of any guilt. Don't judge yourself if you're having a laughing moment. It's good for you. It's good to take breaks from the pain. What are simple, everyday joys that make your days worth living? Whatever you are most grateful for, therein lies your joy. Whatever you are most grateful for, therein lies your joy. So it brought me a tremendous amount of joy, again, to talk about Sergio and hear his absolute stupidity. It made me laugh, so it brought me joy, I dare say, to watch Temptation Island, and because that was back then, and any reality show that wasn't my reality. it brought me some sense of joy. So whatever it is that can get you through a moment, that can bring you a little bit of joy, I encourage you to do that. Next slide. Curiosity. This is a big one. Because as we're trying to figure out our new identity, right? How do we do that? And my advice is curiosity. Follow your curiosity. Curiosity will conquer fear even more than bravery will. Pursue that which makes you curious. Some things will fall away. So there was a moment where I was curious about what it would be like to become this fabulous guitarist, you know, singing all of my songs about love and loss. And so I bought a guitar because I was curious. I learned about 3 chords. I wrote 3 songs. It was Crunchy Christmas, Crunchy Valentine's Day, and Crunchy New Year's, right? And then it fell away. It wasn't something that I continued to pursue, but in my craziness, like I got through a lot of hours just trying to pluck away at a guitar and figure it out. And so follow that curiosity. One thing that stuck for me was my motorcycle. Now, I came from owning a gift shop with Sergio called Inner Peace, you know, and I used to wear these Ann Taylor twin sweater sets. My daughter, sorry. Please, can you go to the other one? And, sorry. I used to wear these Ann Taylor, very conservative sweater sets. And then one day, my friend Jenny, she calls me up and she says, guess what I got? I got my motorcycle license. And I was like, oh, you know what? My birthday's coming up. I'm curious. I'm going to get my motorcycle license too. And so I got my motorcycle license and I moved to Miami. Well, I started bouncing back and forth. I bought a motorcycle there. And in 2003, I drove my motorcycle into a gas station that is the place where I met my now husband, Ray. So my curiosity drove me to do this thing that I really love to do. Getting on my bike was freeing. It brought me joy. It brought me peace. It brought me comfort. I was a biker chick. I felt strong and powerful. And it was a vehicle to bring me to my new life. So follow your curiosity. Enriching your life with experiences you will rarely regret. So do things even if you're the slightest bit curious. Next slide. Purpose. How many of you are struggling with what's my purpose now? My loved one's not here. Courtney, right? What's my purpose? What I can offer is that your purpose will reveal itself, right? But if you're really struggling, I think connecting with other people somehow or some way is a way for you to find your purpose. Brene Brown's quote, "We are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives, and without it, there's suffering." So if right now you can't even live with purpose for yourself, right? You know, live for your loved one. Live for your loved one and find purpose in carrying on your loved one's legacy somehow. That's what I did, you know, for the first, and I still continue to do it. For the first couple of years, I was like dug into making sure that people knew his story, right? And fast forward to 2013, I had done a documentary where they tracked my journey from grief into healing. And I started to hear from other widows saying that seeing that documentary helped them. And with that, I was like, well, how can I help other widows, right? Because September 11th, we were one community and there wasn't the access that, you know, other widows who didn't lose their loved ones on September 11th had. They didn't have the same access that we had to each other. So I was like, I wonder if there's any place where I can find widowed support. And I did my little Google search. And lo and behold, I roll up on the Widowed Village, and then I found Camp Widow, and connecting now with all of you widows who are on the journey behind me, that gives me such purpose. Also, being mom to this little one who won't leave the room gives me purpose. No, sweetheart. You want to say a quick hi? Okay, just so she can. Okay, that's Sammy. Okay,
Samantha.
go now.
I'm
okay,
Samantha.
Samantha now.
I'm
okay.
11.
Okay, bye.
I'm not little.
Sorry. These are the challenges of the virtual camp. She's 11 now, right? So being a mom to her is giving me purpose right now, right? But definitely my work with the widowed community, you know, doing my little support group, my regional group here in Florida, my continued work with Soaring Spirits gives me so much purpose. Perhaps your purpose is if you love animals, perhaps it's like doing rescue work with animals. Think of those things that connect you to other beings, and that can be a way forward to your purpose. Okay? And then meaning, right? We also want to know, what the heck does this all mean? What is all this pain for? What does it mean, right? For me, that meaning is being able to look at all of you and share my story and know that maybe you can get a little comfort of knowing that you're not alone, right? That she went through this and she got to the other side, and she still gets to carry on her loved one's memory, and she still gets to have a great life on top of it. You know, that's meaningful to me. I teach also, you know, middle school and high school kids about 9/11. That gives meaning to the pain. It's like, I went through all of this to share who Sergio was with people, you know? And as painful as it was, you know, I have no regrets about the way I've been able to bring purpose and meaning into my life. So again, connecting with others, whether it's human or animals or even plant life, I mean, I think that is definitely a road to finding your purpose. Okay. Inspiration. So here's some inspiration for you. It's a quote from a 103-year-old woman named Amelia Teresa Harper. Everything makes me happy. I love talking to people. I love shopping. I don't think that there's anything that I need to do because I've done practically everything that I ever wanted to do in the past. I can live happily forever after because of my lovely memories. So for those of you who are still early in the journey, and I consider early the first 2 years, y'all, okay? So don't beat yourself up. For those of you who are early in the journey, it's hard. It can be hard for you to imagine making happy memories right now. And I get that. I totally get it. But I do want you to just hold on to the hope that it's possible for you, as long as you keep following your curiosity, as long as you keep doing whatever the Farfanugan you want to bring you comfort, joy, peace. You will wind up like years later and look back on this time and say, oh my gosh, I got through that. How did I get through that? Right? You'll be able to do that. And I think I also have to say, do it with the support of people who you love and who have your back. And I can promise you here at Soaring Spirits, we got your back. We get where you're coming from, and we can validate all of the messiness that grief brings. So here's a quote. Change the slide, please. This one is a big one. It's only when we truly know and understand that we have a limited time on earth and that we have no way of knowing when our time is up that we will begin to live each day to the fullest as if it was the only one we had. And again, for those of you who are really in the depths of it, this might be hard for you to read right now. Like, I can't live my life to the fullest right now. I get that. But doing little things for yourself, you're going to reach a point where you're going to be able to do more for yourself. And you are going to be able to live life to the fullest. We have learned the most painful lesson that a human can learn, and that is losing our loved one physically, right? We've also learned that time is not on our side either. We're not here forever, right? So we can make our lives to be full again, to have joy again, to have peace and to have comfort again. And it's possible for every one of you. And if you're struggling, I encourage you to seek help from others in the community, as well as maybe a one-on-one grief counselor. Okay? And then my last slide, well, actually, I don't have any more slides, but I will tell you, maybe some of you are wondering why I named this workshop Making Butter. So, has anybody seen that show, How It's Made? It's on the Science Channel. And this one day I was watching it with my daughters, and How It's Made Butter came on. And the narrator proceeded to tell us that in the olden days, butter was made by taking animal skins and pouring milk into it and shaking it. And so that got me thinking, oh, wow, courage, right? Courage for that person that was like, let me go milk that cow. Courage for that person to, I'm not going to get into gory details, but get a skin of an animal. And courage to that person that after they shook up that bag and saw that yellow, creamy mess, that they said, let me taste it, right? Because I don't think I would have the courage to do that. But had they not tasted it, we wouldn't have, as she came to bring me, butter sugar cookies. We wouldn't have delicious steak with butter melting all over it, right? So that little act of courage, led us to these, or mac and cheese. That little act of courage led us to all of this deliciousness. So having the courage to just do little things, if you're like on the fence about something, just think of that person who did that and tasted the butter, and you go make butter yourself. When life gives us lemons, we make butter. Okay, so now, before we go to questions and answers, I just want to remind people that there are forums tonight. The group forums are on the Widowed Village. They are separated by type of loss or type of circumstance, and I think you'll be able to connect with people in similar situations as you. That would be really helpful, just to get some feedback and some more empowerment of like, I'm not alone, that person gets it. All right, so go to the Widowed Village, and I look forward to continuing the weekend with you. And I can let you know too that I wish for all of you comfort and peace and joy and hope and strength to continue going through your own journeys.